And so let me get this straight. An activist DC judge actually thought he was going to be able to throw Kristi Gnome in prison for doing her job, following the Constitution, and removing suspected gang members here illegally from the country. This man sat behind his comfy, cozy bench all the way in Washington, D.C., thousands of miles away from the border, issued a last-minute verbal order to halt deportations of flights already in mid-air, and then act shocked when the Trump administration said, no, we're finishing the mission. And Kristi Gnome, she didn't back down. She didn't blink. She didn't hide. She didn't pass the blame. She owned the decision, says she authorized the flights, and then turned around and told that judge and anyone else listening she's going to continue doing her job. And now this activist judge is finding out what happens when you overstep, as an appeals court is smacking down his attempted power grab. And Kristi Gnome is standing her ground with the kind of backbone people wish every GOP official had. As always, don't forget the best way you can show you support and that you enjoyed the content is by smashing that thumbs up. That tells me you like the video, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. You ever notice how the mainstream media always runs the same script when it comes to the president? Trump's the villain. Trump's breaking the norms. Trump's acting illegally. Every time he actually enforces the law on the border, on crime, on national security, they frame it like he's running some rogue dictatorship while totally ignoring the people he's trying to protect. And that media ecosystem is the air cover for people like Judge James Booseberg, because this isn't just some judge in DC. This is an Obama-appointed judge who has been in the middle of every major legal brawl involving Trump and Republicans for the past decade. Let's start with who this guy is, because it's not random. Booseberg was appointed to the DC District Court by Barack Obama and later became the chief judge of that court. He also served on the Secretive Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA, and eventually became its presiding judge from 2020 to 2021. That's the same FISA system that was used to surveil a Trump advisor using applications that the DOJ's own inspector generals later said were riddled with errors and misconduct. Booseberg is the judge who presided over the case of the FBI lawyer who altered an email used in that FISA process. Booseberg gave him probation, not prison. So this is the judge who sat on the court that signed off on surveillance tied to the Trump campaign, then oversaw the reforms and went soft on the guy who falsified evidence. Now fast forward to Operation Arctic Frost, and who signed off on the secret non-disclosure orders that kept those subpoenas hidden from Republican targets for a year? Ding, 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 ding. Chief Judge James Booseberg. And so when we talk about Booseberg, we're not talking about some neutral ref. We're talking about the FISA judge, the Arctic Frost judge, the guy who keeps showing up when the target is Trump or Republicans. Now, let's move to the deportation showdown. Trump comes back into office and his administration decides to use the Alien Enemies Act to remove Venezuelan nationals who U.S. officials say are members of Aragua, a violent transnational gang. And in March of 2025, planes with about 100 Venezuelan men on board are in the air headed to El Salvador. And Judge James Booseberg steps in. He issues a temporary restraining order blocking further removal under the Alien Enemies Act. And during a hearing, he orally orders that any flights already in the air must turn around and come back to the United States. I want you guys to let that sink in for a moment. You got planes in the air full of suspected gang members on their way to a high security facility, and a judge in DC is trying to radio them back like this is Uber Eats and he wants to change his order. This is where Kristi Gnome comes in. At that moment, she's the Secretary of Homeland Security. She has to decide, do we obey this last second verbal command from a DC judge, or do we finish the mission? According to court filings, DOJ lawyers and senior DHS officials told her that Booseberg's oral order was not legally binding on flights that had already departed. They argued that once the planes were in the air, The detainees were no longer under the same U.S. jurisdiction for purposes of the TRO, and the judge's verbal instructions didn't carry the force of a written injunction. So, what did Noem do? She did exactly what you want a serious DHS secretary to do. She authorized the flights to continue to El Salvador, and she finished the job. And when the judge and the media wanted to know who made that call, DOJ told him straight up, it was Kristi Noem. But just don't take my word for it. Here she is on Meet the Press, owning it.
Noem, let me turn to my final topic. In a filing in federal court this week, the Justice Department said that when the administration was ordered back in March to stop sending detained migrants to a mega prison in El Salvador, you personally made the final call to continue the flights anyway. Is that correct? Do you acknowledge that?
You know, we have court filings going on and decisions that are going forward. I'll let them continue to play through that process.
But did you make that
I'm
call?
proud of President Trump and his leadership and the decisions that we have made. And the decisions that are made on deportations, where flights go and when they go, are my decision at the Department of Homeland Security. And we will continue to do the right thing and ensure that dangerous criminals are removed.
So that you're saying that it was your decision. It sounds like the judge wanted to ensure that people were given due process. He said very clearly, quote, any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, but those people need to be returned to the United States. However that's accomplished, I leave to you. But this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately. Did you defy the court's order, Madam Secretary?
No, Kristen, and that's one of the things that we continue to face across this country is activist judges who are using radical decisions that have no standing and no grounds to try to stop what President Trump is doing to protect America and to keep us safe. So we'll continue to do the right thing, continue to work and protect Americans, no matter what radical judge comes out and tries to stop us. We'll do the right thing and know that we're on the side of the law, the side of the Constitution, and the side of the American people.
Have you ever had a moment that changed your life? One accident, one employer who doesn't care, one hospital bill you couldn't pay. That's how quick life can change. And when it does, you realize something fast. The big companies, the insurance giants, they don't care about you. They've got teams of lawyers whose only job is to protect their bottom line. But who's protecting you? There's a reason why it feels like traffic always jams when you're running late. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has fought for the people, not the powerful. With 1,000 plus attorneys and more than 100 offices nationwide, they've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients just like you. Whether you're a 41-year-old family man in Florida, struck by a driver who ran a red light, Morgan & Morgan secured a $9.3 million verdict. Or a father and Little League coach who suffered lasting injuries in a car crash, Morgan & Morgan secured a $6.1 million verdict. When you hire them, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. Starting a claim is simple. You can get started right now from your phone. No hassle. You can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to see if you have a claim. Their fee is free unless they win. Because when life changes in an instant, you deserve a law firm that's ready to fight for you. She basically told Booseberg, kick rocks. Yeah, that was me, and I'll do it again. That's exactly why this activist judge and the liberal media are losing their minds over her. The second that comes out, the liberal media explodes. Defied the judge, lawless deportations, Trump officials ignoring court orders. And Booseberg turns it into a full-blown drama. He says he found probable cause that the administration showed willful disregard for his orders. He relaunches a rare criminal contempt probe demanding sworn statements from officials and floating the possibility of fines or even prison for the people involved, including Gnome. And so now, the same judge who sat on FISA during the Trump-era surveillance mess, signed off on Arctic Frost subpoenas for Republican phone metadata, is suddenly positioning himself as the defender of the rule of law because Kristi Noem refused to boomerang a plane of suspected gang members back into the U.S.? Give me a break. And the media runs with it, like usual, like Trump and Noem are running some rogue deportation black ops. Here's the part that they don't blast all over cable television, though. In a detailed filing, the Justice Department itself defended Noem. DOJ argued the administration did not violate Booseberg's written TRO. His oral instructions about planes already in the air lacked the force of a binding injunction. By the time anything was written down, the flights were effectively beyond the reach of his order. So in plain English, you can't hold someone in contempt for not obeying a command you never had clear legal authority to give in the first place. Even ABC and Politico had to admit in their coverage that the DOJ lawyers are telling Booseberg there's no contempt here and that Noem acted within the scope of the law in their legal advice. So the media clip is, judge may refer Kristi Noem for criminal contempt. The actual filing is, we don't think there's any violation of your order. That's a pretty big difference, don't you think? And then the roof caves in on Booseberg's power grab. First, the DC Circuit Court of Appeals steps in and halts his contempt process for months while they review whether he even had the authority to go down this road. Then the Supreme Court drops the hammer. In April 2025, the court overturned Booseberg's order blocking deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, held that challenges have to be filed in Texas where detainees are held, not in his DC courtroom. Effectively, they said he lacked jurisdiction to issue the sweeping removal ban he tried to impose. So the highest court of the land basically told him, you never had the authority to control this the way you tried to. On top of that, the DC Circuit Court's mandamus decision in JGG versus Trump explains the obvious problem. You can't seriously pursue criminal contempt based on an order a court had no power to issue. So while Booseberg and the media keep screaming contempt, the appeals court, the Supreme Court, are quietly dismantling his entire theory. He overreached, he got checked, and the legal system at the higher levels vindicated the position Noem was operating from. Now, let's zoom out. Since Trump's been back into office, activist groups have been filing lawsuits like it's a full-time freaking job. Hundreds of legal challenges against his executive actions, regulations, and enforcement moves. Just Security, Skaden, and others are tracking a massive volume of cases. The narrative you're going to hear from the mainstream media press is always the same. Trump keeps losing, courts keep striking him down. This is proof he's lawless, he's destroying democracy, but that's not where the story ends now. Look at the Supreme Court. Rulings show Trump's administration has gotten favorable outcomes in roughly 90% in its request cases where lower courts tried to block him and the Supreme Court stepped in to let the policies move forward. So the real picture looks like this. Activist groups in blue cities and states flood lower courts with lawsuits against Trump. District judges and some appellate panels often rule against him. But once the big fight reaches the Supreme Court, Trump's policies are getting a very high rate on green lights, including this Alien Enemies Act fight where Booseberg just got slapped down. So when you put it all together, here's the real story. The media paints Trump and Kristi Noem as villains defying the law, destroying democracy. The judge at the center of it, James Booseberg, is the same Obama-appointed FISA judge who sat over the Trump-era surveillance mess, and the same Arctic Frost judge who approved secret metadata subpoenas targeting Republicans. That judge then tried to order planes full of suspected Trinidad gang members to turn around mid-flight, come back to the U.S. Kristi Noem looked at the law, listened to the DOJ's own lawyers, and said, nah, we're finishing the job. Booseberg screamed contempt, the media screamed illegal deportations, and then the higher court said he didn't even have the jurisdiction to do what he did. Kristi Noem didn't panic. She didn't fold. She didn't run into a microphone begging for forgiveness. No, she didn't do any of that. She stood her ground, admitted she made the call, and kept standing on the same principle. protect the country, follow the Constitution, and don't let activist judges turn national security into a political game. But guys, I want to hear back from you. Drop your comments down below. As always, the best way you can show your support is by smashing that thumbs up. That tells me you like the video, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this.